Hi, everybody. I'm going to walk you through how to do your final project. It's not that hard. A lot of the work you already did with assignment number 6. So a lot of what's left is basically data entry and finding media, especially describing recordings that you have in your timeline. So we'll get to that. So the first thing you want to do, if you haven't already, is to go to the TimelineJS website. You can get to it very easily. Just do a Google for TimelineJS, and it'll be the first thing that comes up. This is what the website looks like. So to make a timeline, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to have a look at this. This little tutorial isn't bad. It's very short. So, and it's will be a bit redundant with what I'm doing. Most of what you need to know in terms of the basics is going to be there. I'm going to walk you through some things, including things that are a little bit more specific to this project. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go down here and you're going to get the spreadsheet template. So you're going to click on that and download it. Then the next thing that I would do is in your Google Drive, I would create a folder. So I've created a folder called Folder for TimelineJS Materials. I would create that folder and then put that template into your folder. So the template, this is what it's going to look like when you download it. It's going to have these different columns. This is for each slide, you're going to have the beginning year, month, day, and time, and then end year, month, day, and time. You'll have a display date, which is which is the date that whoever is looking at your timeline will see. This column is the headline for each slide. This column gives the text that will appear on each slide. This column is the media. So if you have your image, a video, a Google 360 view, that will go, the links for that will go into your media column. Media credit is optional. If you want to have a caption under your image or your recording or whatnot, that might be a way to put in an attribution, or to, let's say, if you have a recording, if you want to name who the performers are or the ensemble, that can go into your caption. So you can use the caption for a variety of reasons. And then the last thing you really need to know about, notice how these are all blank. The only one I would even talk about is this last one, background. So if you want to put an image in the background of your slide, you can do that. Keep in mind that any background image you use might be competing with the text that's on the slide. So you want to make sure that if you use a background, that it is not going to be making the text more hard to read. So, and backgrounds are optional. I don't use backgrounds on some of my timelines, and I do on others. So that's totally optional. If you're short on time, don't even worry about it. Okay, so this is what your timeline is going to look like when you first download it. And hopefully you have a ready-to-go timeline outline from your assignment 6. And so my sample outline looks a little bit like this. So I have my title slide and then down the list. So I've started one here. So let's go up here. So for the title slide is you don't need to put any dates into that. That will automatically show up as the first slide in your timeline. So you want a headline for your title slide. You don't need any text. I think it's good to have a media, probably some image related to what you're talking about, or a video or some type of media, but an image is usually a good way to go. And that's really it. You don't need too much. You want to make sure that your name is listed there somewhere. So in your outline, you could say, headline a timeline by Devin Burke. So, and that, if it's in the headline, it will remain centered. If you have a headline and text, that the text will be to the right of any media that you have. So that's a little clunky, but it's one way to get your name in there. All right, and then you can just go down the list. So you can always create new rows as you go, but also remember that the years that you put in, or the dates that you put in, you don't have to put them in order. So on my sample timeline outline, the first date I have is 1566, but when I started building the timeline, I actually started with 1590. So I don't have to create new rows. In the middle, I can just go down to the bottom and of my template as it stands so far, and I can just add more rows to the end, and then I can put 1566 right there for my next slide. Even though it's earlier than these other slides, the TimelineJS, when it renders your timeline, it will automatically put all the slides in order by the year, month, date, time, etc. that you've indicated. So I'm going to put my display year as 1566. And I am going to see what I've got. I'm going to put I'm going to just copy my text there and copy that into the text box and clean it up, obviously, and add a little bit more. That's not enough text to fill out a slide. And I can give this a name based on what the slide is about. Something like new rules in Italian convents, something like that. That's clunky, but you get the idea. And then I decided that I would find an image of a typical convent. So I did that earlier. And this is one. So I actually found this in Wikipedia. So Wikipedia is actually not bad for images, because a lot of the images you find in Wikipedia are the images are generally pretty reliable, and they tend to be also Creative Commons. They tend to be public domain. So I'm going to save this image, and I'll save that. It'll end up in my downloads folder. And then I'm going to go into my downloads folder, and I'm going to grab that and drag it into my Google folder. So I'm not sure if you're seeing, I think, here we go. So this should be going into that right now. Okay, so now I have an image of this convent that I can put into my timeline. So all I need to do to take the image and put it into the timeline is, it's in the Google folder. I just do a right click on Get Link, and it's going to show up as the default is restricted. I want to change restricted to anyone with the link can view, and then I just copy that link, click done. Then I go into my timeline, and I'm going to put that image into the media column. So now that should be good to go. And alternatively, I could have taken I could do a right click on the image itself and copy image link, and then I could copy that into the media column, and that would do the same thing. The difference is that with the link to the image in the Google folder, I know it's going to stay up there. If it's on the internet, there's always a chance that something will happen. Someone will take it down, or something will happen to Wikipedia or whatever site that you're using. So if you link it to the image that's in your Google folder, it's a little bit more reliable. Okay. So that's one way. So and then I would go down my timeline that way, building each slide that way, and filling out whatever text I have in my outline, filling that out so that it's fleshed out, it's more detailed. And so you want to have, I would say, about 150 words, thereabouts, give or take. I'm going to be flexible on these final projects in part because you all are the first class that are doing these final projects. So I'll be forgiving on that if you don't have a ton of text, but I would love to see at least 2 or 3 sentences on every single slide. Okay, so then go through and for different types of media. So we'll take a look at that. So that there are a couple ways to put images in. If you want to have a YouTube recording in there, all you need to do is just grab the link for that, and you can either use the link that's up here, or you can just go down to the share button and copy the shorter link. And then you would just put that into your media column. And same thing if you want to use a Google image. That takes a little bit of just one extra step or two. Let's say you want to put a Google 360 image into your timeline. So what you need to do for that is once you find the 360 image, you're going to see this information up here. So that the name of the image, often the name of the photographer. This is the street view image that you're looking for. So once you get to that point, you need to get not the link or the URL up here. You need the embed link. So you click on these 3 dots. You click on share or embed image. Click on embed a map, and then you copy that HTML. And then that HTML is what you put into the media column in your timeline. It will look like that. So it's a healthy bit of code. It won't turn into a hyperlink because it's an embed code, embed HTML, but it will show up in your timeline as a 360 view. Okay, so that's how to convert your timeline into your slides. YouTube links all those types of media are easy. If you have any questions about how to embed certain types of media, at the bottom of the TimelineJS website, you can click on, under technical documentation, click on supported media types, and it will tell you these are all the types that are supported and how to grab those types of media to get them into your timeline, and those would generally go into the media column. Okay, so a number of you asked about scores, and what my recommendation for that is if you can get a PDF of the score, whether through IMSLP or CPDL, or if you have a scanned copy of that score, whatever works. If you can get a copy of that score, I would put that score into your folder for your timeline, and then just like all the other media or images or files that you have in here. For instance, here is the score that I have for my timeline, and this one I pulled off of IMSLP, so it's not super long. And what you can do, what you've done for the others, which is just go to right click on that score, go to get link, copy the link, make sure it says anyone with the link can view it, copy the link, and then put it into the text of a slide where you have the recording for that piece. So it might look something like this. I'll show you. So here's the headline. The headline, in this case, I use just the name of the piece that I have the recording for in my media column. And then I'm going to, in the prose, I would describe some key details and moments to listen for, as well as any historical context that the reader of the timeline should know about in regards to that piece. And then I just copied the link for the score into the text. So, and then just tell the reader they can click on that link and it will open up the score for them. So that's how I would get the score in there on the same slide as a recording of that piece. Okay, let's see what else. And we'll take a look at what other options are available for it. So I'm going to say for the final project this year, I would say you do not need to credit the media, the images, in part because you are going to be embedding those media, and people can click on the media and go directly to YouTube or to whatever website. So in a sense, you are giving credit through the link that you're including. That I may change that for future years when we do the project again, but for this year, you all don't need to worry about it. Okay, so how do we get the timeline to actually render? So as it says on the TimelineJS website, you have to publish your template to the web. So let me show you how to do that. It explains pretty clearly, but I'll walk you through it all the same. So I'm going to show you on this template because I've already published this sample page to the web. Okay, so you go to File, and then under File, you go down to Publish to the web. And you have to, under link, it says entire document. You switch that to OD1, and then just hit Publish. And you say, OK. And then you just get out of that box. It's now published to the web. Now what you do is you grab the URL for your spreadsheet, and you grab that. I'm gonna grab the URL for this spreadsheet because it's the one that I've been working on. And then you take it back to your TimelineJS website, and you put it into you paste that into this box here, and then the website does the rest of the work for you. So it gives you a share link. So if you want to share this with anyone, this is now the link that you would use. If you want to embed your timeline into a website that you have or someplace else, then you want to use the embed code. So if you wanted to share this on, let's say, Facebook or Twitter or any social media, you would use the share link. If you want to embed this somewhere, you could use that. So you also have options. So let me tell you about those options. So you can choose different font pairs, and if you click on these, it'll show you the font pairs are for the headings, and then the second font is for the text on the slide. So you can play around with that. You can have the default start slide be 0, which makes the most sense. You can use hash bookmarks, which is very useful. So I always check that because that means that each slide has an individual URL. So if you want to share just one of your slides with somebody, you can do that. If you don't have this checked, that means you can only share the entire timeline with someone, and they would have to start from the very beginning. So I like that option there. So once you have all that set up, then you can click on preview. And let's look at what I have versus what rendered. So I have my headline, no text. I have a photo from my Google folder in the media column. And then for this opening, I did add a background. It took me a little while to find that background, to find something that wasn't going to be competing with the text. So, and that's what I got. Now, one issue with the Google image, when you link to an image in your Google folder that I have found, is that it will tend to spread out and create these big sort of blank areas around the image. Whereas if you use a link to an image that's on a website, it will only show that image. It won't create these blank spaces around the image to fill in the rest of the slide. So that's what that looks like. So my next slide is going to have just text on it. And I want to point out something. This is really important because a lot of people were asking about this. You have to, every slide after your title slide has to be placed on the timeline somewhere. So that means we have to assign it a year. But that doesn't mean that you have to associate it with a year. You just have to make sure that it shows up in the right place on the timeline. So the text for this slide doesn't really pertain to a particular moment in Katerina Assandra's life. It's just an introductory text slide. So what you can do is make sure that the year you're using is the earliest year that you have. So if you add anything, make sure that it's an earlier year than you've introduced in any of the other slides, which I'm going to do right now. I had 5090 because that was my earliest slide, but then I went back and started adding in earlier years. So now I have to adjust that slide to make sure it's the earliest. So for the display date column, I just put in 2 hyphens. So that shows that this slide isn't linked to a particular date. It's just an introductory slide. And in this case, I included a link to my bibliography, but you're not going to do that. You're going to put a link to your bibliography in the last slide. So, and I will show you what that looks like. Okay, I made an adjustment. You might have noticed that I did a quick edit there. So I changed the dates on my text slide so that this slide is now the earliest slide in the timeline. But for the display date, I have 2 hyphens. So this shows that it is just an introductory slide. So I have an image of our composer in question and a bit of an introductory text. And you can see very small, there's my 2 hyphens. And there's no date linked to this slide. So it is just a kind of a topic slide. And I do have the link to the bibliography here. That was an earlier version of this slide, but I will show you where the link to the bibliography actually should go. So here's a slide with an image, another slide with an image, and here I've included a caption to indicate who that is, and in the text I would describe who that is in some detail. Here's a slide with a 360 view image from Google, and then again you want to make sure that you're describing where this place is and how it relates to the topic at hand. This is just another trial slide there. This is another trial slide where I've embedded a video from Google. So this is a video that's in my Google folder, and I just created a link to that and then embedded that into I put that into the media column for this slide on my timeline, and it plays just fine. That's not for this composer, it's just a sample video, but there's a link here. If someone clicks on that, it will take them to the Google folder where they can watch the video, and they can make it bigger and do that. So this is what it looks like if you embed a YouTube video. There's a link to click on it where it will take you to YouTube, or you can watch it within the slide itself. You can indicate who the performers are in your caption or anything about the piece. Remember that on any slide where you're talking about a specific piece of music, you want to include information about key details or moments for the listener to listen for, as well as any pertinent historical information about that piece. And here's just another example of a slide with the recording, but this one I wanted to show that I've added a link to the score, and the score I've put into my Google folder. So, and here's the link that I've added to the text, and if you click on it, it will automatically open up the score in a new window. So your audience can listen to it, click on the recording, and then they can also follow along with the score. So that's probably the easiest way to include the score in your slides with recordings. And then the last slide doesn't have to have much on it at all. You can just say bibliography and then just indicate that the sources for the timeline can be found in this bibliography. And then here is the link, just they can click on that and it will take you to the bibliography. And the reason why I want you all to put the bibliography into a Google Doc and not onto the slide itself is because you can't really format your text correctly in the timeline slide. So you need to put it into Google Doc to get the formatting all as it needs to be. Okay, that is a basic run through of how to turn your timeline outline into the types of data that you need to create your timeline. So once you've put all that in, and you can keep hitting preview to make sure it all looks good. I tend to do that to keep checking that everything is working right. Once you have finished that, then all you need to do is you need to make sure that you copy this this link here, and you can copy it. You can open it up in your browser. And what I usually do is I open it up in the browser and then I immediately bookmark it. So I have it's saved. And then that link is part of what you're going to share with me for your final project that you're submitting on Blackboard. Okay, that's the basic run through. If anyone has any questions about that, I hope this was helpful, and always feel free to send me an email. Okay, thanks.